Minister, good morning. Again, on behalf of the board and members of the council, I would really like to thank you for blessing this occasion. I think at the same time, I must thank my colleagues for putting this event together. Minister is always with us as we grow in this organization year to year. But let me start also by congratulating you, Minister, to just highlight a few things that as an industry we notice, as a council we notice. I don't know if maybe some other guests know that the Minister has actually been elected by all countries of the world to chair what is called International Telecommunications Satellite Organization, which is the global body that is responsible for policy and regulation of telecommunications. Minister, congratulations. Again, Minister, we all have seen hosting this very wonderful ITU event for the first time in the African continent. Congratulations, this is a great event. I mean, we probably have more than 100 countries in South Africa in this event. Again, thanks to you, Cabinet and the President, really for deciding to host this. I would also like to, again, Minister, thank you as an industry for, again, talking to your colleagues. We now have an ECA bill in the process, and we have been talking about Huawei for over a year. Last time we were here, now it is going to be part of the legislation. We also want to wish you well in your campaign for South Africa to join the Council of the ITU, which is elections that will be taking place in October in Dubai. We wish you well there. We hope South Africa will take a seat in the Council of the International Telecommunications Union. We want to convey to you, Minister, through you to your colleague, the Minister of Science and Technology, who yesterday published a Science and Technology and Innovation draft white paper, and the Minister asked us to contribute to that paper. We have a month to contribute, and as an industry, we have given her commitment that we will respond, and also we will participate in the summit that your colleague will convene on the 9th of November to debate issues of science and technology and innovation in the country. Relevant to that draft white paper, which I read yesterday, it was published yesterday, I've sort of just highlighted few issues. One, clause 1.2.4, looking into the future, which is addressing issues of AI in our country. And also, clause 4.9.3, which is very much focused clause towards us as an industry, and then 5.1.2, which is dealing with infrastructure in the science and technology sector in the country. And then the last one, which is the most important one, is how as a country we start to build what we call new collar jobs in the age of AI, in the age of digital. So I think it's important that we share with you that in the strategy that the President has put of New Dawn, we see movement, and we want to congratulate you and your colleague that we will definitely participate in that process as an industry. I think what should we be talking about, Minister? We should be talking about the road to the fourth industrial revolution. Like anybody, if you want to go to the airport, you put in your GPS, the destination of the airport, it will give you time, it will give you best routes to take. I think it's important for us in planning going to the fourth industrial revolution to actually understand the road we're going to take, to actually understand the distance, to actually understand where we will need fuel, the skills we need, the type of transportation we need in order for us to reach the fourth industrial revolution. So we believe that, Minister, as an industry, we are here to contribute, to assist you and your colleagues in that journey, so that as a country we can work together, both public and private sector, in going towards that fourth industrial revolution. Now, I just want to contextualize the fourth industrial revolution in our own environment as a continent, in our own environment as a country, that we live in a world where by 2050 there will be 10 billion people, and that developing countries will constitute over 50% of this, and that rapidly the world is urbanizing. That's why we build fiber in the cities, because we understand that. And also by 2050, almost 2/3 of the world's population will reside in cities. So there is almost this speed of urbanization that is taking place, and Africa will have about 1.5 billion people at that time, and that, that number will increase. And of these mega cities, Africa will have about 6 of them, of which, I was talking to the Premier last week on Friday, that the Gauteng city region will be amongst those 6 countries, so those 6 mega cities in the continent that will form this global concentration of people. Now, if you are going towards the fourth industrial revolution, it's important for us to understand these mega cities and this industrialization as we build the infrastructure, in particular this community that is building that first layer of optic fiber, for instance, that is critical to the fourth industrial revolution. So it's very important that we contextualize what we do towards this urbanization and the growth of the world and the cities of the world. Something else I need to raise is that Cisco then sees the internet, that almost 82% of IP in the next 2 years will be video. So because of that, you therefore need high-speed infrastructure. Because of that, you therefore need this very complex infrastructure to drive video, no more the old type of data. So we can see it today in almost every day, probably more than 50% of the things you download have video in them. And that is going to require a lot of infrastructure and a lot of speed. And that is why we have to build this infrastructure that we are all about. Again, building fiber, connecting data centers. Tomorrow, people are starting to buy 8K television. As these 8K television are going to be connected online, they will need high throughput and high connectivity to be able to drive video, VR in various family homes and businesses. So the next frontier, as we see it, Minister, it's again, people talk about, it's machine learning, AI, big data, VR, all these, they need optic fiber to transport these things. The debate that is happening in the industry is about how do we move today from 400 gigabits per second per wavelength to 1.2 terabits per second. This is 400 megabits per second. It's no more research. It's being used between data centers as speed to connect data center to data center connectivity. And again, there's a move to get into what other people call the Shannon's limit. This is going to bring new business models. Not only business models that are different to us as business, but business models in the way in which policy is written and derived, in the way in which regulation is done. As we move to these giga to terabit capacity speeds in our infrastructure. And therefore, one of the critical issues is the talent and the skill that is going to build the types of applications that are going to be driven what we call, for instance, computer vision, which is a subset or sub-discipline of artificial intelligence. So policy and regulation agility is going to be critical, and therefore, in our view, we want to recommend to you that the convergence of these departments is critical. Department of Communications and Telecommunications must come back together in driving video, because communications is about video and telecommunications is about infrastructure, and that is why we talk about convergence. And therefore, what is also important, the role of regulation. There is an information regulator on one side, there's a CASA on the other side. In our view as an industry minister, these regulators should come together, because when you talk about regulating issues that are online, there would therefore be a conflict if these institutions operate independently and separately. One very important issue, Minister, that is hurting the industry today, I must confess, is what the local government and municipalities are doing to us, unfortunately. It's an area that we believe, together with yourselves, it requires address. You know, we have got 2 legal cases that are running at the moment because of some municipalities who have decided to put tariffs on top of the tariffs we are paying with ICASA as licensed operators. It's an issue that is of concern to us. It's an issue that we believe it does require urgent attention, in particular if we want to pursue that road to digital transformation. So just to therefore say, Minister, going back to these drivers, to the next wave of 400 gigabits per second, you know, we are supposed to be connecting these hyperscale, you know, data centers, basically. I mean, and web-scale internet is driving all this, and metro long haul is critical to us. So relationship with cities is very, very important between us as an industry and the cities to access, you know, this infrastructure. Issues of, you know, trenching and conduit, rack density and costs. If this is not managed, it's going to ultimately affect the cost of the consumer because of the price that municipalities are putting. I cannot sit down, Minister, without talking about 5G, basically to say that one of the critical, you know, things we are doing as we lay this infrastructure is in preparation for 5G. That 5G is coming, and every base station or a microsite will have to be connected with fiber, and that is why we need this capillary type infrastructure to connect as many base stations to almost what I would say that per square kilometer, 5G would require between 15 and 20 these micro base stations in order to have a much more densification in these very big cities that are growing. The other aspect I need to basically raise is that the technology is changing in the sense that, you know, there is this disaggregation now happening at optical layer, colleagues, whereby, you know, there's a separation at DWDM. That layer is even again becoming software, you know, and we are very happy with this. That makes us able to innovate even at a transport layer. Now, Minister, one of the most important issues I want to raise is the following. If South Africa really would like to be part and parcel of this global, what I call global hyperscale data center grid, there's something we need to do as a country. I mean, we need to actually create an environment that these big institutions can see us as a destination for mega or hyperscale data centers. It requires us as an industry to continue as we build our own individual networks, but to basically understand how this network in a country will be part and parcel of the global internet grid that is being built today in the world. Until we understand ourselves in that way, otherwise we will be isolated, whereby no major cloud provider is interested in putting these hyperscale data centers here. So there's a lot of work that we need to do, both in terms of availability of electricity, for instance, affordable electricity, availability of, for instance, inbound, outbound, ocean-based fiber, and then issues that are related to the way we relate with major cloud providers around information policy, data policy, sovereign issues, basically. These are issues that if we come up with policies that will make people run away from our country while we need investments, while we need them to come. So it's very critical that together we need to develop these policies in order for us to attract these institutions in our shores. Again, Minister, WAWEN is very important for us. I think what is critical is the execution of this. We are willing as an industry to engage you and ICASA in how this is going to evolve, both in terms of how it is funded, the regulatory framework, the ownership models, in order to ensure that, you know, there is diversity in ownership, and also it could be owned as broadly as possible. Some of the paper that I've prepared and I've submitted to some of your colleagues and the regulators, that the possibility could be you list this at the beginning whereby, for instance, in the same way as people bought shares at Sasol, MTN, and others, you could create that type of a mechanism in the way in which Wawan would be owned basically in the country. Again, it's very, very important that these issues are addressed, and these issues, for instance, should make this alternative infrastructure that will allow small ISPs to get access, to this type of infrastructure and be able to deliver services. Now, Minister, let me talk about, this is my second last slide, about what I call the banning platform, basically. The industry, cities are very important to what we do. And, the local communities, the local government is something that we think that there's a need for a dialogue between us, yourself, your counterpart in COGTA, and various municipalities to address what we call as a banning issue in the industry in terms of pricing and tariffs that are put on us, in terms of getting waivers in some of these municipalities, is causing a lot of, I would say, earthquake in the industry in terms of a lot of small companies are feeling the pain with this, unable to access municipalities. It is something that we believe that we will be able to resolve. Last year we signed an MOU between us and SALGA, and unfortunately there are a number of municipalities who are not actually following that type of an MOU. So these are critical issues for us that we believe that we need to address. Now, the last issue, Minister, that I just want to assure you that as an industry, we are committed in working with SMMEs and startups. As a board, we have made a decision that we are going to create a subcommittee that is going to focus in a way on how we engage the startups and SMMEs in the industry in order to support them as we roll out in various parts of the country. One critical issue for us is what we call how do we grow and support the township economy to ensure that the people who dig, the people who lay fiber, the people who connect homes in these areas are the local people, so that we don't get people from Durban to go and do installation in Newcastle, but people in Newcastle can be able to do this type of work, on their own. So again, congratulations, Minister, and then we thank you for really coming and spending time with us and for hosting the ITU and the fact that we are here alongside this very big event that is happening in the country. Thank you very much.